Okay, so we are going down a huge rabbit hole this time with the Sallie House.
Yeah, demons, pentagrams, YouTube ghost hunters.
It's a lot.
It really is.
But that's why we're here to try to make sense of it all.
Mhm.
So, what really stood out to me in the research for this one was the variety of sources that you gave me.
Yeah.
We have like 5 different YouTube investigations, each with their own approach and a set of experiences.
It's like trying to put together a paranormal puzzle, right?
Right, and I think what you are really looking for in this deep dive is a little bit of clarity amid all the chaos.
Definitely.
So we're going to sift through these investigations today. We're going to look for patterns and maybe we'll get a little closer to understanding what's really going on in that house.
Sounds good.
So I think for those maybe who haven't heard of the Sallie House, maybe give us just like a quick overview of the location and its history and the main claims surrounding it.
Sure. So we are in Atchison, Kansas, and it's this unassuming little house, but it has a very dark reputation. And the story goes that a young girl named Sallie died there tragically, and people believe her spirit, along with some other not-so-friendly entities, never left.
Yeah, and so these YouTube videos that we're looking at today, they don't hold back on the creepy details. So we're not just talking about like your typical creaking doors and cold spots here.
Right.
Multiple investigations report objects moving in ways that seem almost deliberate, almost intelligent. You know, it's not just random stuff falling over. It's like something is playing with them.
For sure. And there's a great example of that in the satanic Sallie House video. There's this ping pong ball that moves down the stairs one step at a time.
Whoa.
So, skeptics might say, well, maybe it was a draft or the camera angle. But when you see it, it is odd. And this is a recurring thing that we see in a lot of these investigations.
Right. And then there's that teddy bear that supposedly spins on its own and returns to the demonic Sallie House. It's like as if something is trying to get their attention, but in like a very eerie way.
And that's what's so fascinating to me is that it seems to be consistent across these investigations, toys being moved, things being rearranged, almost as if something is trying to communicate.
Right.
But not in a language that we understand. So, it begs the question, could these movements be a form of communication maybe from a non-human intelligence?
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. But it's not just the visuals that are so freaky in these videos. The audio recordings are downright chilling. We're talking voices, whispers, and even what some describe as demonic growls, all captured on these EVP recorders. It's like something is trying to speak, but just out of reach of our normal hearing.
A great example of that is this EVP from Satanic Sallie House, where a voice seemingly says, "Shut up," in response to being asked about fear.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then there are whispers heard on digital recorders in both Satanic Sallie House and Our Unexplainable Night at the Sallie House. So it really does make you wonder, are they trying to warn us or are they trying to lure us in?
I'm getting goosebumps just talking about this. And then there are all these physical sensations that some investigators report. I mean, we're not just talking about feeling cold. We're talking nausea, headaches, scratches, even burns, like the house itself is attacking them.
Yeah. Tony Pickman, in Return to the Demonic Sallie House, claims that he was scratched in the house. And then you have some YouTubers experiencing intense headaches in Satanic Sallie House. And then in our demonic encounter at Haunted Sallie House, there are claims of burns and singed hair.
So we've got objects moving, creepy voices, people feeling physically affected. So the big question is, who or what is behind all of this? Is it just Sallie, like the legend says, or is there something darker at play here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there is some evidence that does seem to support the Sallie narrative, the idea of a young girl spirit. Maybe a little mischievous, but ultimately harmless.
But then there's all these other reports of like this intense negative energy, the demonic voices, and even some psychics have done readings that suggest that there are multiple entities and like a shadow figure lurking in the basement.
Right. And that shadow figure really does throw a wrench in things, because if it's not just Sallie, could there be a more powerful entity controlling things and maybe even masquerading as a child to draw people in?
And then we have to address this whole pentagram situation, which is a lot.
It is?
There was a pentagram found in the basement. There were rumors of satanic rituals performed by a previous resident. I mean, it sounds like something out of a horror movie.
Right. And it really does make you wonder if whatever happened in the house tainted it in some way. And, could these rituals have opened a portal or something and invited negative entities in?
Okay, so we've covered a lot already. We've got physical phenomena, the chilling audio, the physical sensations, the Sallie question, and this pentagram in the basement. So what stands out to you the most so far? What are you thinking?
Honestly, I'm just struck by the sheer variety of phenomena that's being reported and the fact that it's not just isolated incidents,
Yeah.
But we see these patterns emerging across different teams, different years, all pointing to something unusual happening in that house.
I agree with that, and I think, it's important to remember that we're not here to tell you what to believe. We're just laying out the evidence, the experiences, the different possibilities. So ultimately, it's up to you to decide what you make of it all.
Exactly. But one thing is for sure, this is more than just your average haunted house.
Yeah.
This place is like a puzzle box of paranormal activity.
Yeah.
And I think we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, for sure. So we're going to dive deeper into this whole Sallie question, that creepy pentagram, and what it all might mean in the next part of our deep dive. So stay tuned. Okay, welcome back. It's a lot to unpack, right?
It really is.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything we talked about last time.
Yeah.
All the Sallie House stuff. It's one thing to just hear about haunted houses in general,
Sure.
But when you actually delve into the details, it's a whole other level of creepy. So let's talk about Sallie a little bit more. I mean, we know the legend, but some of these YouTube investigations, they paint a more complex and honestly kind of a more disturbing picture than just a playful child ghost.
Yeah, I think you're right. And,
Yeah.
and there are definitely moments that we see in these videos that seem to support that traditional narrative. The idea of this young girl's spirit may be a little mischievous, but ultimately harmless.
Right, like in the Unexplainable Night at the Sallie House video where they're trying to communicate with Sallie using toys and stuff and a teddy bear.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems innocent enough, right?
On the surface, yeah. But then you have these other accounts where the energy totally shifts and things get a lot darker.
Yeah.
Like in Demon Caught on Camera at the Sallie House, the psychic describes the energy as heavy oppressive, and then she reports seeing this shadowy figure.
And she even mentions this whole Top Hat Man entity, which I know we haven't really talked about that, but that's a whole other rabbit hole in the paranormal world. So it's suddenly it's not just a little girl anymore, it's something more sinister. And I don't know, it makes you wonder if something could be manipulating people's perceptions, using that image of a child as a mask.
That's what I think is so unsettling about this whole case. Is it really does feel like there are multiple layers of reality overlapping. And it's so hard to tell what's genuine, what's manipulation, and what's our own minds trying to make sense of all this chaos.
Totally. And then on top of all of that, we have this pentagram in the basement.
Right.
Which just throws fuel on the fire. The idea that a previous resident was performing satanic rituals there, it just sounds like something out of a horror movie.
Oh, for sure. And it makes you wonder if maybe those rituals somehow tainted the house.
Yeah.
Could they have attracted these negative entities or amplified the energy that was already there?
Right. Could it be connected to this darker energy that some investigators experience this feeling that maybe Sallie isn't all that she seems?
It's definitely something to think about.
That's a really unsettling thought that the house itself is a conduit for whatever darkness was unleashed there.
Right. And, if we even entertain the idea that maybe demonic entities are at play here, like some of the investigators have suggested, then the pentagram takes on a whole new meaning.
Yeah.
It could be a symbol of power, a focal point for negative energy.
Yeah.
Maybe even a way for those entities to anchor themselves to our world.
Okay, I'm officially freaked out now, but here's what I find so interesting about this is even when all this creepy stuff is happening, even when these investigators are visibly scared, many of them still try to find rational explanations for what they're experiencing.
Yeah, I really appreciate that about these YouTubers. They're not just blindly accepting everything at face value.
Yeah.
They question things, they're skeptical, they try to debunk their own experiences.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important in this field.
Right. It's like they have this awareness that maybe they could be mistaken, like in Satanic Sallie House when they initially question if they accidentally kicked the ball down the stairs,
Right.
It just shows a certain level of self-awareness that's often missing in these paranormal investigations.
Absolutely. And I think it's that balance between belief and skepticism that makes these accounts so compelling.
Yeah.
They're not trying to convince you of anything. They're just inviting you to join them on this journey of discovery.
Yeah.
And to grapple with the unknown alongside them.
And I think that's what makes the Sallie House so fascinating. It's not just about ghosts and demons and, all that stuff. It's about human nature,
Sweet.
It's about our curiosity, our fear, our need to understand the things that go bump in the night.
Absolutely. It's that primal part of us that's drawn to and terrified of the unknown all at the same time.
Right. We want to believe, but we also need proof.
Exactly. And the Sallie House with this whole mix of playful spirits and potential demonic entities, it just keeps us constantly guessing
Yes.
and questioning everything.
Yeah, but let's not forget about the human cost of all this. I mean, these investigators aren't just playing a game. They're putting themselves out there, risking their physical and emotional well-being to try and understand what's happening.
You're absolutely right. And we see it in their reactions, their moments of fear and vulnerability.
Yeah.
The headaches, the nausea, the feelings of dread. I mean, these aren't special effects. These are real symptoms of the toll that these investigations can take.
Right. And then the impact of it can linger long after they leave the house.
Oh, for sure.
Nightmares, feelings of being watched, anxiety. It's like something from the Sallie House follows them home.
And that, to me, is one of the most disturbing aspects of this whole thing, because it suggests that whatever is happening there, it's not confined to those four walls.
Right.
It has the potential to reach out and touch the lives of those who dare to enter, even after they've left.
So we've got this really complex web of paranormal activity. We have these conflicting accounts, the demonic suggestions, a very real impact that it has on these investigators. It's a lot to process. So out of all this, what stands out to you the most? What's resonating with you as we try to unpack this?
You know what I keep coming back to is the question of Sallie.
Yeah.
Is she actually a benevolent spirit who's trapped and misunderstood? Or is she a tool, a mask for something much darker?
Yeah.
And if so, what does that say about the nature of hauntings in general? Could there be other cases where we're being deceived, where something seemingly innocent is actually a disguise for something much more sinister?
Well, that's a chilling thought. And it makes you wonder how much we can actually trust our perceptions when it comes to the paranormal.
Right.
We rely so much on our senses, on logic, but what if those things are being manipulated?
That's the challenge, isn't it? We have to be open to the possibility of the unknown, but also be willing to question everything, look for patterns, consider alternative explanations, because in the world of paranormal, nothing is ever as simple as it seems.
Okay, welcome back to the final part of our Sallie House deep dive. It's been quite a journey.
It really has.
We've talked about so much already, everything from those moving objects to those demonic whispers, and honestly, I'm still trying to make sense of it all. It feels like we're trying to put together a puzzle, but like half the pieces are missing.
It really is a puzzle, isn't it? And I think that's part of the appeal of this case is there are no clear-cut answers.
Yeah.
The Sallie House is this tapestry of unsettling events and, different stories that conflict with each other. And in the end, there are more questions than answers.
Which I think can be both frustrating and fascinating at the same time.
Yep.
Because we want those answers. We want to know what's going on. But sometimes the mystery is what draws us in.
I agree with that. And one thing I think we haven't really touched on much is the historical context.
Oh, yeah.
We know that the Sallie House has a dark past. But what about the town itself, Atchison?
Right.
Is there something about the town's history that might be contributing to all of this?
That's a great point. And I mean, Atchison is known as one of the most haunted towns in America, right?
Okay.
There are all these stories about tragedies, strange occurrences, even rumors of occult practices going back centuries. So could that energy be amplifying what's happening in the Sallie House?
It's certainly a possibility. Some researchers believe that certain locations act as energetic crossroads where the veil between our world and other dimensions is thinner.
Okay.
And maybe Atchison with its history is one of those places.
So it's not just the Sallie House itself, but the entire town is like a giant antenna for paranormal activity.
That's an interesting way to think about it. And then we also have to consider the role of belief and collective consciousness.
Okay.
When so many people believe a place is haunted, does that belief itself become a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Oh, that's interesting. Like, does the energy of people's beliefs somehow feed the phenomena or even attract entities looking for attention?
It's a question that's been debated for centuries. Some researchers believe that our thoughts and emotions can create energetic imprints, especially in places where strong emotions have been experienced.
So the Sallie House is like a mirror reflecting back our own fears and expectations.
In a way, yes. And I think you see that reflected in the YouTubers and their investigations.
Yeah.
The different levels of belief and skepticism.
Right. They all go in with these cameras and EVP recorders and all these tools designed to capture the unseen. But are those tools just passively observing? Or are they interacting with the environment?
Right. Are they influencing what they're trying to capture?
Exactly. And, some people believe that these electronic devices can act as conduits for paranormal energy.
Yeah.
They might even attract entities that are drawn to those electromagnetic fields.
It really makes you wonder if our technology is amplifying the very things we're trying to study.
Yeah, it's both amazing and a little scary.
It is. And I think it highlights how little we truly understand about the interplay between our world and the world beyond our senses.
Right.
And it reminds us that when we're dealing with the paranormal, we always have to be mindful of our own biases, our own expectations, and how those might be shaping what we experience.
So after all of this, where does this leave us? I mean, we've explored all this evidence, the history, the psychology, even the technology, but the Sallie House remains an enigma.
I think so. And perhaps that's the most valuable lesson of all. This deep dive wasn't just about finding answers. It was about asking better questions, challenging assumptions, and embracing the mystery.
Because in the end, the Sallie House isn't just about a haunted house.
Right.
It's about our own fascination with the unknown. It's about our desire to connect with something beyond ourselves and our willingness to confront the things that go bump in the night.
So what do you think was the takeaway for you, the listener? After all of this, has your perception of the Sallie House changed? Are you more inclined to believe, or are you more skeptical, or are you somewhere in between, embracing that mystery and the unknown?
Whatever your conclusion, I hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on the Sallie House, on the nature of the paranormal, and maybe even on yourself.
I agree, because ultimately exploring the world beyond our understanding is a journey that we take together.
Yeah.
And the Sallie House, with all its mystery and intrigue, is just one stop along that path.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep listening. Who knows what mysteries we'll uncover next? Until then, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Sallie House.